to the Embassy of Czech Republic for hosting this debate, and I invite for the first step Mr. Ambassador of the Czech Republic to open our debate, and thank you again for hosting this debate. Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellency.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, my dear colleague, Ambassador of the United Kingdom. I want only say to all of you, welcome in this very important, very useful, and I'm sure very nice event. So I will be not the panelist. I wanted only to welcome you, and the table is yours.
Your Excellency, thank you for opening our debate, and I introduce you my colleagues in the panel. Mr. Paul Brummell is the Ambassador of the United Kingdom in Romania, and Mr. Tom Gallagher. Tom Gallagher is historian, professor, and author of many interesting articles in Romania Libera newspaper. Troublemaker. Yes, not so. So the question is a very complicated one. The question is the Brexit. We're starting with this debate, and after the debate, it will be a documentary. But for the beginning, Mr. Brummell, it's a little bit difficult for you to speak about such important subject because it's very controversial in your country. The debate is very tough in the United Kingdom. How this subject, in your opinion, how this debate began? It's only caprice of Mr. Prime Minister, or it's more?
Ovidiu, thank you very much. I think it would be worth giving a little bit of history, as you invite me to do, and clearly the whole issue of the UK's relationship with the European Union is a crucial one for all of us. It is a matter of strong public debate, and I think that is why our Prime Minister David Cameron felt that it was right, as a democratic country, to let the people of the United Kingdom express their view on our future relationship, whether that should be within the European Union as it is now or outside it. David Cameron's view, the British government's view, was that the European Union gives a lot of opportunities for the UK, for example, the single market, which gives access to some 500 million consumers, is an enormous benefit for British firms, but David Cameron's view was that there were some important issues where reform was required, and that's why he embarked on a process, a very long process, a very important process of negotiation with all of our 27 EU partners, really looking at four key areas where he felt reform was required. One was around economic governance, which is all about ensuring that the European Union going forward is a European Union which is flexible enough to accommodate all sorts of different countries. So countries like Germany, which are existing members of the Eurozone, countries like Romania, which aren't members of the Eurozone but which want to be in the future, and countries like the UK, which aren't members of the Eurozone and have no intention of being so. A second key area was around competitiveness. We felt that the European Union needed to do more to focus on jobs and growth, needed to do more on tackling bureaucracy, needed to really reaffirm its commitment to things like the signing of international trade agreements. A third area was around sovereignty, where we fought to establish provisions, for example, the removal of the commitment that the UK should commit itself to ever closer union, reassertion of the role of national parliaments based on the doctrine that laws should be done nationally where possible and only in a European sense where necessary. And the fourth key area was around welfare and migration. The UK very much supports the free movement provisions of the Treaty of Lisbon, but for example, we have a benefit system which is quite unusual within the EU. We have a very something like 60% of our benefits are in-work benefits, and that led to some distortions where benefits which were designed to help sort of ease poor people out of poverty and get them into the job market were actually effectively going to fund overqualified people coming from other parts of the EU who hadn't contributed into the system. So we felt that there was a need to address that. And I'm very pleased to say that at the February European Council, there was an agreement made between all 28 EU member states, which the Prime Minister felt, yes, this is a good deal. It's answered the concerns that we had raised, and that's why going into the referendum, the government is not neutral. The government is taking the view that the UK is better off, stronger, and safer within a reformed European Union.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Oh, Mr. Gallagher, you, like historian, how do you see the history between the island and the continent, not from Wilhelm the Conqueror or from Napoleon, but after the Second War?
If you don't mind, Mr. Nahoi, I'll go back a little further, perhaps to the 18th century when we were involved in a titanic struggle with France, Louis XIV. Napoleon came along, and I think it was the cardinal principle of British foreign policy that it would be important to prevent a monolithic European power emerging, because it was likely that that power would not be liberal or democratic, but it would be expansionary and conflictual. I think there was a sea change in the 1960s and 70s when the forerunners of the ambassador here, Mr. Brummell, felt that Britain's status in the world required it to be part of what was seen as a very ambitious global initiative, the European Union. The European Union was pioneering, dynamic at that time, but the elite never managed to capture the allegiances of the majority of the British people. I think since Britain joined in 1973, 40% of people have been opposed to further integration. And now I think the EU has lost a lot of its luster, its prestige. It's a long time. You have to go back a long way to think of a really successful EU policy initiative, but it's easy to think of the euro, a political exercise to basically unite the EU financially, and more recently, I would say the debacle of handling the migration and refugee issue. So I think Britain is divided, about whether to stay in a centralizing EU, which is, I think, determined to go down the path of greater political union, despite the skepticism, not just in Britain, but in plenty of other countries such as the Netherlands, Sweden, which used to be very Europhile. So I will stop there.
Okay, thank you. After this first tour de table, I will introduce you our friend Radu Magdin, political analyst, He's together with us by Skype. I hope he's ready to entry in our room by Skype. Radu, do you hear me?
My name is the host to the fellow co-panelists.
Hi. Okay, Radu, do